What the heck happened today?
Let's walk through this. 9 a.m., Wilbur Ross, he is the American Secretary of Commerce. He's overseeing this investigation, whether there should be tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. He holds a conference call with reporters and says, yes, you know what, we're going forward. Canada, Mexico, European Union, they're all going to get hit with these tariffs. 25% on steel, 10% on aluminum. At the very same time, Chrystia Freeland and key members of cabinet who are on the Canada-U.S. relations team, they were meeting just outside the Prime Minister's office to finalize what their response was going to be. We're learning that Chrystia Freeland was given a heads up by Robert Lighthizer today, and then once that notification was made official, those key members of the government sat together and said, okay, how are we going to retaliate? How is it going to have the most impact? So once that news was made public, Justin Trudeau held a news conference this afternoon alongside Chrystia Freeland, and that's when they announced the countermeasures, dollar-for-dollar tariffs, $16 billion worth of tariffs against American products, things that are made from aluminum and steel, but also everyday goods, things like ketchup, things like whiskey, things like mustard as well. And everything was picked for a reason, to have a political consequence in the United States, to put pressure on those lawmakers down there. Justin Trudeau held a news conference today denouncing what the Americans have done, saying it is just inconceivable to say that Canada could be a national security threat. Have a listen.
Let me be clear. These tariffs are totally unacceptable. These tariffs are an affront to the long-standing security partnership between Canada and the United States, and in particular, an affront to the thousands of Canadians who have fought and died alongside their American brothers in arms.
So the U.S. reasoning that they feel like they can invoke this national security measure to try and protect their industry is that these sectors have been hurt by job losses, and if there is some kind of emergency, the American industries wouldn't be able to produce enough steel or aluminum on their own to be able to make the America self-sufficient. So that is sort of the reasoning there. But there are a lot of other reasons that are in the mix here.
Okay, what does it mean in the bigger picture for NAFTA?
Of course, this is certainly not going to be welcomed by NAFTA negotiators. The talks broke down over the past couple of weeks, but at that news conference, Justin Trudeau made a startling revelation about just how close Canada, Mexico, and the United States were to an agreement. Have a listen to this.
There was an offer that I made directly to the President last week to go down to Washington personally with Chrystia and sit down around a table with the President to work out the final details of NAFTA, because there was the broad lines of a decent win-win-win deal on the table that I thought required that final deal-making moment. I got a call from Vice President Pence on Tuesday in which it was impressed upon me that there was a precondition to us being able to get together, that Canada would accept a sunset clause for NAFTA. I had to highlight that there was no possibility of any Canadian Prime Minister signing a NAFTA deal that included a 5-year sunset clause, and obviously the visit didn't happen.
So the background there, the Americans want to include this thing called a sunset clause in the NAFTA negotiation. It would require Canada, the U.S., and Mexico to recommit to NAFTA every 5 years. And if one partner isn't happy, they would bail. It would create a lot of instability for businesses. Why would you change the rules of an industry if this deal isn't going to be there in 5 years? Or why would you invest in Canada or Mexico if you don't know you're going to have access to the United States market? So it's something that neither Canada nor Mexico like. Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland have been very firm that they don't want that. But we do know the Americans have said if there was a renegotiated NAFTA by this time, that perhaps Canada and Mexico would be exempt from these kinds of tariffs. So that certainly puts a big question around how they ended up here when they were, it appears they were so close to a NAFTA deal.
Fascinating to hear how close they were.
Very close.
Thanks, Katie. The CBC's Katie Simpson. So did this U.S. decision surprise the government here, or was it ready to respond with these retaliatory measures? Is the government confident they'll actually work and President Trump will retract the tariffs? Joining me now is Minister of Foreign Affairs, Chrystia Freeland. Hi, Minister Freeland. Nice to see you again.
It is great to be with you, Vashi.
I wanted to start off by asking you, the retaliatory measures that you announced today don't take effect until July 1st. Mexico's start tomorrow. Why wait the month?
It's very important for us to get the retaliation exactly right. This is the largest trade action that Canada has undertaken since the Second World War. And part of what we announced today was a 15-day consultation period. So our list is now published. I urge all Canadians to take a look. And that consultation is really real. We're looking for people, individual Canadians, also industry workers, to look at the list and let us know if they see any issues with it, if they have any ideas.
Does it lessen the impact, though, if we wait a month?
Not at all.
Why not?
The fact that we have announced this very strong measure, that is the impact. And we are going to do it on July 1. For the affected U.S. companies, seeing yourself on that list is very powerful. And frankly, this is a period during the consultation period when I hope U.S. exporters to Canada will make their voices heard.
Is there going to be a coordinated effort to make that happen?
There's a way for all U.S. exporters who see themselves on the list. Get in touch with your legislators. Get in touch with your state representatives. Let them know that these unfair tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum need to be lifted. And if you can do that in the next month, then we won't have to retaliate. Were
you surprised? You won reprieve twice in the past 2 months. It sounded like it was very last minute that the announcement was actually made. Were you personally surprised?
You know, one thing that we said right from the start of dealing with this U.S. administration, particularly on economic issues, is to expect drama, to expect the unexpected. And our approach from day one has been and continues to be hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We were very prepared. As you can see from this list, this is a comprehensive, carefully thought through and worked out list. It was ready, and we were ready to publish it today, which we have done. Ambassador Lighthizer did phone me very early this morning to let me know to expect an announcement.
What did you say to him?
I said that I was very disappointed. I said that this was a mistake.
You've long said that this has nothing to do with NAFTA. Can you still insist that that's the case?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a very important conceptual point for Canadians to make and to understand, which is Section 232, according to the regulations and approach of the United States itself, is a national security consideration.
But the administration is saying this is about NAFTA.
Well, the legal pretext under which they are doing this is for national security reasons. And that is another reason for us to be particularly firm in our approach.
But that's
because as the Prime Minister has said,
the political one might be different.
Laws matter. Laws matter, and the reasons that people do things matter. And I think it is very important for Canada to be very clear that it is particularly absurd, it's even insulting, to take this kind of trade action against Canada on national security grounds. I mean, seriously, Vashi, who thinks that Canada can represent a national security threat to the United States? It's absurd. We are their closest ally in the world. We are allies in NORAD, we are allies in NATO, we are allies on the Korean Peninsula, not to mention our vast shared border. And to say that our steel and aluminum can pose a national security threat, it's just wrong, and we need to be clear about that.
Doesn't it make it obvious, though, that this is a political decision as well? And if so, what was the tipping point? Because, again, for the past 2 times, you were able to win a reprieve, this time not. Was it the sunset clause? Was it the conversation between Vice President Pence and Prime Minister Trudeau?
You know, Vashi, that's a question for the U.S. administration.
Were you given any indication?
I don't. No, we were not. About any sort of specific tipping point. That's a question for them, and I think that's a question that ought to be posed to them, because this is absolutely unjustified, and you know, we need to be clear with them, with all of us need to be clear with our American friends and neighbors and cousins, so many of us have them. We need to be clear about what's happening and the unilateral action that the government of the United States just took against Canada. And, I think the other point that it's important for us to appreciate is, at the end of the day, this isn't about Canada. This is about the United States.
But it sure impacts a lot of Canadians.
It has huge impact on us. And I would never minimize that. That is why our response has been so strong. But we as Canadians naturally see everything through a Canadian lens, as we ought to do. We need to remember this is not about us. It's about the U.S. administration. And this is an action which they have taken against all of their closest friends in the world. On this same day that they announced the action against us, they have taken it against Europe and against Mexico. They have taken it against all of their NATO allies.
So what does that mean for the
really
G7?
astonishing.
Do you think President Trump will be there?
We have no indication that he won't be there.
Is NAFTA dead?
Absolutely not. I mean,
Why not?
actually, quite the contrary. NAFTA exists, even as we speak.
NAFTA 2.0, I should have clarified.
Well, no,
the new NAFTA.
No, but it is a very important point to make. One way in which the NAFTA negotiations are quite different from, say, the CETA negotiations with Europe is we're not negotiating a brand new agreement. We are modernizing an agreement that exists already, that has been in place for nearly a quarter century. So NAFTA for sure is alive and kicking. Canadians do billions of dollars of business every day using their NAFTA preferences. They did it yesterday, they did it today, they'll do it tomorrow, and that is a very good thing.
But that renegotiation that you have led for this country, where does it stand right now?
Well,
because the impression I think a lot of Canadians have is this is kind of not going to happen for a long time, if at all.
Our position throughout the negotiation has been to say, if there's a table, Canada will be there. We are kind of the eager beaver.
Was the table smashed with this, though?
We always do our homework. We are always ready. We are always prepared. And I think that is exactly the right position. And I take a lot of comfort given where we are today. And today is a sad day. It's very sad, first and foremost for Americans, that their government has chosen to take this action. I think Canadians should be comforted by the reality that Canada has done everything in our power to negotiate in very good faith with the U.S., and we're prepared to keep on talking. Having said that, we've also been very clear, and I was clear with Ambassador Lighthizer this morning, and the Prime Minister was clear publicly today, that we take this action very, very seriously.
Okay, thanks, Minister Freeland. Appreciate your time.
It's really good to see you.
Thank you, you too.